Okay, this video. Oh, okay. When people choose to become a priest, um, and that is their driven journey that they decide to have, and then they're not supposed to have a wife or intimacy or sex. It's a tall calling. It's almost too big for a human being. Um, Loving God and wanting to serve God are very, very high missions. And a lot of times when people enter this, they have that plan in their head that they can do this and serve God and and represent God. And what happens over time, because our biological clock, even in men, ticks, and they want sex and intimacy, there's not an outlet for that in that journey. And the problem when it then becomes such an issue that there's so much pent up, built up emotion and feelings and testosterone is when any kind of a violation occurs. And it's so beneath the title that it makes someone's mind that it happens to the victim beyond their capability to understand, because as we come into the world we look up to mom and dad, and then if you choose to be part of the church, you choose to represent and love God and be part of that. So those three people that you look up to are your highest powers of life, everything you're taught to believe in, and everything that you think means life and religion. And when anything happens to break that, there's no there's no mental capacity for the victim to know where to put who they are, because the perpetrator, which would be the priest, violates someone who's trying to believe in that journey and to serve God, and it's ripped out of them at the first inappropriate touch. And what happens to that victim is, because religion was what they were taught to believe in, to trust, to follow the Bible, to know about, to lead through, to change the world, save the world, heal people, and that there is right and wrong. When that gets shattered, the mindset of that victim is dissolved like jello in hot water. It's just soup. And what happens to that victim, especially because they don't know where to go. So say their parents are so happy they're a priest and so proud, and the community's so proud, and herein lies a victim that's been raped and abused or sexually assaulted by someone else in the church. They are paralyzed for where to go and who to become. And it's devastating and it's awful. Now, I just want to throw my personal views in there, but they're not necessarily anyone else's views. I disagree with any person, including a priest, that does not have sex, because our bodies are meant to. And in saying that, I believe that if they make that decision, they have to choose an outlet for that that doesn't violate anybody. And that has to be one of the first things they're willing to sacrifice. And I've known two priests, and what they were was addicted to pornography because it was their outlet, and they could do that without harming anybody and have no emotions in it, because basically human emotions are meant to have bad and good and happy and sad and family. And when you're a priest, you're not supposed to be married, and you're not supposed to have family. And what do you do then when you're a leader of God, leading that thought process when it's not, when you can't be part of it? So it's a very, very complicated recipe, and not everybody can do it. My belief then is that when you figure out you can't do it anymore and it's a problem, is to leave and get out, because the before there's an action that happens to break someone's mindset, it's your duty to leave. But a lot of them are cemented into the title and they imprison themselves, and they can't live a true identity, and then they live this other way which harms people and victimizes people. And it's been going on. I remember it all my life. It's really sad. Now, there are people that can become priests in other religions, like I think it's Episcopal, and you can get married. But to lead a church and to lead about family and then not be part of a family is just a tall order, and not everyone is qualified. Instead of having as many victims as there are, I wish this wasn't such a taboo subject and people would deal with it like I am, for what it is, and tell the truth. And my video here is explaining how it happens, but then the rest of this video is going to be about healing the victims. So if you entered into the priesthood and you had this happen to you by a priest or another altar boy or anybody in the congregation, what happens to your mind is that, where do you go from here? Because it's dissolved every single piece of your being to have anyone victimize you in a way that you can't figure out who to wake up and be in the next day. And it's shattering, and it's devastating, and it's awful. And knowing that this has happened to you one time, the chances are it could very easily be repeated. And that's the first message about this. And, you know, when I was really young, I was sexually harassed at my first job to the point where I couldn't even function in my 20s. I was terrorized. I had this icky, fat old man when I was 20 trying to tell me he was going to lay me out on a conference room table at my job. And I was paralyzed, and I couldn't tell anybody. I didn't tell anybody until I turned 47, and that happened when I was 20. So it took 27 years for me to be able to tell somebody why I left that job, because I had a prestigious job in a great company, and this happened. And it affects your mind every day. And he bullied me and intimidated me. And finally, the one day when he said, "It's tomorrow, plan to be late tomorrow and tell your boyfriend you're not coming home, that's our meeting." And I quit without notice to this prestigious job. And the personnel office called me and said to me, "We want to have you in for an interview." And they tried to pull out of me what happened and why I would quit overnight and not even have a job in the future. And I needed it. And I was paralyzed, and I could not even say anything because I was afraid of him. I was afraid of getting fired. I was afraid of everything. I was afraid if I told what they would do. I knew they would not protect me, and you couldn't talk about that in those days. So in that same scenario, when that's happening to you within the church, it's the exact same thing, because you want to leave, but you don't want to tell why. You don't know who to tell. You don't want to tell your parents because they might kill the person. And then you're going to have a church shakeup. And then you also have people that may not believe you. And so you're in that exact same predicament of what to do. And what I want to tell you is to own your soul. Because that violation is inexcusable. It's unforgivable. It's anti everything about religion, which is supposed to be based on love and mutual agreement and consent and mutual bonding that happens. And it needs to make you rethink what you want to do and who you really want to be. Because Perpetrators know how to pick out their victims, and there's something in you that they victimized, which very well could be the same thing that saves you. Because when there's layers inside a dream, and when there's something that you can't see until you get there, a lot of times a blockade, like an ice block, bam, in your face, is this wait a minute moment. And if you get that wait a minute moment, it could be a message for you that there's an equal place for you to do as much good as the position in the priesthood as somewhere else. And you need to rethink that and think if it's possible and if that's who you really want to be. You have to take the ashes of your broken soul after violation and say, okay, this is unfair, it was unfathomable, I'm going to mourn, cry, be angry. And ultimately, you need to forgive, not for the perpetrator, but for yourself. We don't forgive for the person that did it. We forgive so we know who to become and who to go on and be. And that takes time. And there's no judgment on how long that takes. You will feel that violation till the end of time. But what you get to do is make it smaller and reduce it so that it becomes a transitional moment rather than the moment someone tried to break you. And when you're making these decisions, you have to weigh out, what if this happened again? What if I become this? What if there's no other journey but this? What if I then can't think clearly about leading because I have this anger that's really my truth? And then I'm supposed to go into church after that violation and preach to people? I might not be able to. So the thing is that you really have a lot of decisions to make in an unfair job and job title. And when I say unfair, I mean because it's actually too tall of an order, in my view. I don't believe that our bodies were meant to not have natural intimacy and to have love and affection, because that's what love and family is all about. So to ask you to give all that up, including for yourself, for a matter, I think men are sexually active for like 40 years. I'm not really sure, but it's a lot of decades. And that's a thing that you really have to weigh out if that's what you want to be. And there's many dreams we all have, which we are not meant to have. And then after we get into them, we go, whoa, this is nothing like the dream. And that dream can be the same for you. And what you have to choose to do is understand that having been victimized once, it was that iceberg, and it lets you have time to rethink your decisions. And how to get out of it is very complicated. Telling people isn't going to work a lot. You should be able to press charges and have that perpetrator go to jail and do all of that. And sometimes you can do that. But what happens in a community of denial is that they will vilify the victim. And they do that for women that get raped also. And there's a high price to telling that makes it hard to tell. I never could tell. And I would guess my skanky boss in the company that I worked for did it over and over and over. And while I felt bad that there were probably more victims, we just weren't born in a day where anybody could tell the truth and say it. It was too taboo. And in the priesthood, it's continuously that way now, because all the people are looking up to religious leaders to save and heal us, and they don't want to have that altered so that they can't trust the words that come out in the sermons. And that's a really tough agenda to fight, because people are banking on religion when everything dark is around them and they don't know where to turn. They turn to God and religion. And for you, you have your own personal war and healing going on at the same time. And what I feel about anyone that is victimized is that you have a choice to let it ruin your life, alter your life, change your life or redirect your life. And I always tell people to redirect their life. Now, there's a chance you can just get strong from that and make sure you're never set up again and don't go to any crazy meetings someone's asking you to go to and all those things. And then you feel that your journey can still be that way. And that's completely up to each individual. But the point to heal is to not make yourself feel responsible for what the perpetrator did because it wasn't your fault. It wasn't even this much your fault. Any perpetrator picks their victims out. I don't know how they know how to do it, but they just do. And they victimize you. And my boss victimized me, so I don't know how he picked me because I'm really strong. But I was never going to meet that jerk in his office and stay. It wasn't even an option. And so, people who don't want to live in their truth often just think, yeah, this girl looks pretty and young and stupid, so we'll grab her. And oh, this boy looks handsome and young and innocent, we'll take him. And it's not a reflection of a negative characteristic of you. It's about the innocence and vulnerability you have, which you can use to your advantage. I've used it to my advantage my entire life. The less I know about bad, the better I live. I do know enough, but I don't camp on the news channel and watch every dark thing that happens. I put good into my world and I keep it there. And you can too. You can become and be anything that you want after this experience. And what I would do after that is not let that perpetrator take away my freedom, my right, my wellness, my healing, my purpose, my journey, and my right to live on this earth. And I would survive so that they pay and I don't. And that's how you heal. And I don't mean vindictively. Karma takes care of everything, so let that happen. But you take care of you, and the more well you are, and the more strong you are, and the more you become, you overstep that gigantic blockade obstacle that was thrown at you, and you just marched over it like you had magic ice pick shoes, and you go do what you were meant to do. And that is how you heal. And you have a right and a duty to yourself to take that vulnerability and that innocence and that gift of a leader to rise it up out of this and become whatever you want to be. You will never get over what happened, but you can make it smaller and live around it. And you have to do it as a right for yourself to live well and to become whatever you choose to be. And all people are not meant to be in that life. It's a lonely, hard, devoted life, and the only reward that you get is a congregation that follows you. And not everyone can do it. And you have to make that decision. For me, I'm too emotional and passionate and loving and caring, and I love intimacy, and I love family and people and hugs and kisses and bonding, and it would not work. So you have to rethink your whole persona after this type of experience and decide if that's really the genuine avenue that you need to go down. And if it is, go nail it, because you will, because now you'll even be stronger. And you will have to figure that you can't be set up into victimized roles anywhere, and you can't necessarily trust people in the congregation, but your own leadership as your own journey towards being a priest is where you belong and you want to be. And I wish every man the best decisions for them, not for what everyone else thinks or what everyone else wants you to be. Because it's you and you alone that is going to make this gigantic sacrifice and figure out how to handle your own personal bodily emotions and drives and take them down so that you can have the role and lead. And it's a tough job. and I wish everybody well, and I honor everybody that can do it successfully. It's a gigantic sacrifice, and most people never stop to think of how big of a sacrifice it is for you because they're too busy going there trying to get what you lead with sermons and the Bible for them, and they don't put you into a human role where this is happening to you and what you're giving up to be that. And it's a tough job. And if it was me and I was queen of the world, I would let every priest marry. And I would let every priest, whether they're gay, straight, transgender, bisexual, lead. Why not? It doesn't mean you can't lead if you love people. That means you lead better because you know more. So if they ever put me in charge, I would just do carte blanche. Everybody can have whoever, and they can still be a priest, and whatever they do in their privacy of their own home is their own business. But they haven't let me lead the world yet. But that's just a good opinion, so that I'm not the only one that feels this way. And I just want every victim to figure out what journey works for them over and above what everyone else thinks so that they're successful and they understand how to recover. Thank you.